thank you so much, Ashley. I love this conversation about the black-headed heron. I don't think I've ever seen one. But I suppose patience is key, and patience definitely paid off in this case. Not that I was being patient not to find Mr. and Mrs. Wig, but I haven't seen them in about 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. Because they haven't been back at the nesting site, but now that it's breeding season, they're home. They're back. So beautiful. Now, I don't know if this is Mr. Wig or Mrs. Wig. It's one of the two. But it's very tough to tell because they look pretty much exactly the same, except that the male is slightly larger than the female, which is different to a lot of other birds. In most birds, the female is larger than the male. But in spotted eagle owls, it is definitely the male that is bigger. I have a feeling this might be Mr. Wig. He looks quite puffy and proud and big. But I could be wrong. We can't see the other one. But how amazing is it to know that our little owl family might be expanding soon and that they're finally back in their home space. Now, I'm not sure whether they're once again, wow, language. I don't know if they're going to use the same nest or not. Amanda, I'm sure certain owl species might migrate, but they shouldn't really need to. Most of the migratory bird species are the ones that eat things like insects. So the owls that we get here are definitely resident. But there might be an owl species in the world that migrates. I'm actually not sure. But these ones definitely don't. The rose eagle owls don't. Pill-spotted owlets, scops owls, none of them do because they eat mammals, rodents, insects. They eat a variety of things. And so we don't have anything that really changes that much summer to winter that the owl and predatory species here would not be able to find food. But what they do is they will move away from a nesting site and come back to the same nesting site year after year. So Mr. and Mrs. Wig have been around Djuma the whole time. I'm sure they've been somewhere here, but they would have potentially just not been close to the Mulawati drainage line, or we just didn't notice them. But at the specific nesting site, they only really come back during the breeding season. Can you imagine? It would cause a bit of a problem if Mr. and Mrs. Wig were to come back to the same spot every single night. Predators would find them quite easily, so they want to keep that nesting site well hidden. They don't really want to be that obvious that they can be tracked down to the same spot for every day of the year. Isn't it beautiful? Currently sleeping. If it had its eyes open, you would definitely notice them, these striking yellow-orange eyes. And this is the largest of the ear-tufted species of owl in the area. So the other owls that are larger do not have those ear tufts like a rose eagle owl. They've got a bit of a shape, like a cat-headed shape, but they don't have those ear tufts. I think the ear tufts are quite dramatic looking. I really like them. So I think it's probably likely that Mrs. Wig, I think, is out hunting, if this is Mr. Wig and not Mrs. Wig. The other one is definitely out hunting somewhere and probably had a nap just a little bit down the riverbed or somewhere on the bank, looking for rodents, looking for lizards. All the yummy things one must look for when you're producing eggs and growing things inside of you. So definitely worth it. I'm hoping I get to see her sometime soon. It would be very nice to see the pair together. We were quite lucky last year, obviously, having them nest here. When I got here, they were already nesting. So that's this month. A year ago was my first stint at Djuma. And Mr. and Mrs. Wig were already nesting. They had eggs, and then by the time I came back in December, January, February, they definitely didn't just have eggs anymore. It was very special to be able to watch. But he, she, this one is definitely having a nap. So I think we are not going to disturb any longer. I'm sure it's going, please, will you stop talking for a second? Because I wouldn't like to have a nap in such a beautiful spot and not be able to hear the birds and things around me. or be able to hear them but be distracted. So what I'm going to do is carry on down the riverbed. I'm going to go towards Mamba Road and make my way back down towards Gari Main in the east.